Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. Guess whose birthday it is today? No, not Tupac. A bunch of people though. Richie Valens, La Bamba, died with the Big Bopper and Buddy Holly in Iowa in a plane crash. Harvey Keitel, the actor, dude's cool. Stevie Wonder, the great Stevie Wonder, Lena Dunham, Stephen Colbert, and Dennis Rodman, the Worm. So yeah, like a lot of people I knew right off the bat. Didn't have to didn't go, oh, who was that? There's other people born this day, I'm sure. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, Rodman's son. And I can't remember his name, Worm Jr. maybe. He's transferring from, I think, Washington State down to USC, and he's going to be playing with little LeBron, with Bronny. So, I mean, just the audiences for those games, I think USC will be selling out basketball games this coming season just to watch, just to see if LeBron or Rodman show up. So anyway, you know, I every time I make a mistake, or every time anybody makes a mistake, I think it's important that they kind of like analyze it and at least, you know, recognize it as a mistake, figure out how to avoid doing that in the future. So I did something incredibly stupid today on I-70 in Ohio, and I'm grateful, very grateful to report that it didn't turn out badly. You know, safety didn't have to get called. Nobody called the cops. Nobody had to be cut out of a wrecked vehicle or anything like that. But I was on the phone, okay? But, you know, I had my earpiece in. And I was just talking, and I was kind of by myself, but candidly, I hadn't checked my mirrors within the last, like, 5 seconds. And really, if you haven't checked your mirrors in the last 5 seconds, if you're going to move a truck laterally, you're just rolling the dice. And so I'm driving, I see this object in the road, right? And, you know, I'm balls to the walls, right? Like, I'm going 64 miles an hour. And as I get closer, I realize it's a turtle crossing the road. He's crossing the road from right to left, but he's in my lane. And for some reason, I decide to straddle him. Instead of going around behind him, instead of going right, I decide to straddle him, which takes part of my truck into the left lane. Except I didn't check my mirror before I did that. Now, I didn't go very far in the left lane, but that doesn't matter, right? I did something stupid, and it's so weird because I just did an annual prime safety class refresher, and like on the simulator, I clobbered the shit out of the deer that runs out in front of you. And, you know, and the guy said, yeah, we don't swerve for critters or whatever. And, you know, not only did I kind of like, and I didn't really swerve, I kind of just went over there, but it happened that fast. And, you know, then I was like, damn, I can't believe I just did that. So it's important to, you know, constantly reinforce. And I don't know if it was because I was distracted, because I was in a conversation. You know, talking on the phone is a distraction, whether or not your hands free or not. You know, it's kind of funny. Everything is a distraction, right? Everything is a distraction. The Qualcomm is definitely a distraction. The, what do you call it, DriveWise, definitely a distraction. That is very distracting, actually. You know, your nav is distracting. You know, there's a lot of stuff that distracts us. And you know, and here's the funny thing about the turtle. I don't know why I like turtles. Maybe because I just think of turtles as like this really cool, you know, like reptile from a long, you know, they've been around for eons, like kind of like alligators, you know. And I would probably try to avoid an alligator. Deer, no, they're getting hammered. Coyote, I'm running them over, you know. But I just feel raccoon, probably they're getting hit. I mean, I'm not going to swerve for a raccoon. But I don't know what it is about a turtle. Now, I'll tell you this, Komodo dragons scare the shit out of me. Like, even a picture of a Komodo dragon gives me the willies. And I probably would hit them. Although, if it was big enough, I would come to a complete stop and back up, because I'm afraid a Komodo dragon would eat my entire truck. Like, they're just the creepiest, scariest. Like, to me, they're like modern day T-Rexes. They're just like all sorts of bad news. But anyway, you know, so don't do that. I also wanted to mention something that I noticed a couple of times, and I guess maybe I've just noticed it recently because somebody pointed it out to me at one place, and then I saw it again today. But I've seen trucks from other companies, and when I say other companies, I don't mean A-fleeters. I don't mean like Wilson or some A-fleet person or something like that. I mean like other trucking companies that I know are not like regular kind of contractors with Prime, but with Prime trailers. Somebody sent me a picture of one at I guess a shipper or receiver, I can't remember which. And that was the company I totally recognized their tractor. I totally recognized the name of that company. And then I got passed by one today, and I didn't think it was a Prime truck at all. You know, I was actually looking in my mirror. I see this guy coming up, and I'm like, you know, like usually if it's a Prime truck, I, you know, pay attention and then I wave when they go by or whatever. But I was like, I looked and I didn't see the side of the trailer at that angle. And you know, I mean, I guess that I understand that the brokerage side at Prime might, you know, get kind of like power when they can't get somebody to haul a load. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing that's what's happening. But it excuse me. But it does kind of a little bit rub me the wrong way, just because, you know, there's so many drivers that are, you know, struggling to get loads, to get good paying loads. You know, so I know the people in brokerage, they need to feed themselves and stuff like that, but it just, right now, like if it was a year and a half ago, I wouldn't really care. But right now, it just seems not okay. And I mean, I know that's just me. And, you know, I've talked to people that are struggling, and I know it's hard, and I don't, you know, I've always seen myself as kind of a problem solver, but I just, you know, I'm like trying to help, you know, or, you know, just when I talk to people, say, oh, well, you know, let's do an autopsy and see, you know, what is it that you're doing. And sometimes, and I'm not going to lie, like I said yesterday, sometimes it's luck. I do think a fleet manager plays a role in it. And I think even in this particular market, I don't think that you necessarily have to take every load that's presented to you, even though you might have to wait, you know, go to the back of the queue to wait for a new load. You know, Jim C, and if you don't watch his channel, just go to Jim C's channel. Jim C as in Churchill. I don't know his last name, but Jim C. He's a driver at Prime. He's training somebody right now. He's a big Denver Broncos fan. But Jim C was talking about a deal where he was going to repower a load. In fact, I think it's maybe his last episode. He talks about, like repower disasters or whatever. And he was talking about rejecting some loads that just didn't make sense for him and his co-driver. Now, he has a different calculus than I do right this second, because he's paying somebody to be on the truck. No matter what the load looks like, that person is getting paid that $128 a day plus, the extra. But go listen to what he says about some of the loads. He's I think rejected a couple of loads recently. And I don't know that that rejecting a load, that if you're already hurting, another load that pays $1.42 a mile is probably not what you need. But sometimes, we take loads and go somewhere because the load pays well, but we haven't really thought through what it's going to take to get out of that place. But I do think the first line of defense is your fleet manager. There's a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I think it's true. And by the way, Jim C talks about doing a favor for a fleet manager, but then making sure you have a backup pre-plan, so you get, you got some benefit coming to you for doing somebody a solid. But here's the thing. I think talking to your fleet manager and saying, hey man, this ain't working. Like I know somebody whose truck is giving them like tons of problems, and they just started leasing that truck. It's a used truck, but they just started leasing it, and they've been on, they've been like off the road more than they've been on. And I said, man, go turn that truck in and just demand a new one. Because Prime lets people terminate leases early. You'll just be forfeiting tire fund and whatever else. But if you're not moving, who cares? Like, it would be, even if you had a ton of money in your tire fund and a ton of money in your end of lease bonus, which he doesn't, it would make sense. Like, if you're like, hey, I'm making $300 a week. Well, who cares if you give up $3,000? Because you could make that up in a week with a truck that runs all the time. And so we're only talking a truck that runs all the time and a couple of decent loads, right? You got to do a cost-benefit analysis to what you're doing. But the other thing is, talk to your fleet manager, and every single dime matters. It's kind of funny, because if you haven't taken the ACE 2 class, one of the things that they teach you in ACE 2, and I'm specifically talking about Trish has this motto or mantra, and she'll say every penny counts. And she's talking about, if you could save a penny per gallon on fuel, that adds up, and she's totally right. But every penny also counts when you're talking to your fleet manager. I will do favors for my fleet manager, but I ain't running a charity. So like, I took the PSC class. I haven't been paid for it yet, and I'm going to say something to him on Monday about that. But I also picked up an intermodal trailer for frickin' Pedigree, and those things are frickin' heavy, man. Like, I got that thing on my back. It was like I had a load of meat in a regular reefer. I'm like, holy shit. This thing pulls like it's heavy, And I shuttle, and here's the thing, right? Like, on one hand, you might say, oh, well, all Terry did was he took his empty and swapped it out with another empty. And then he took that empty to a resale lot or another company that leases trailers. And then he dropped that empty, bobtailed to a carrier dealership, and picked up an empty there that's a regular Prime empty. And so, you know, he was going that way anyway. But my take on it is, and this should be yours, it's a pain in the ass to drop a trailer, right? Is it a big pain in the ass? No, I can drop a trailer and do it correctly in, you know, like I could like go in a lot, find a spot, back in the spot, and be back out to the gate in 5 minutes. I can do it. In fact, one time I had to drop a trailer, and this is when I had Connie on the truck. I had to drop a trailer, and Connie was a good student, so she would get out of the truck and watch what I was doing. But I dropped the trailer so fast that by the time she got out of the truck, walked around, I was already walking back to get in the truck. And it's just because I got my little system, and I'm just like, whip it down, disconnect, let's go. But, by the way, I said let's go way before Tom Brady started saying that. Actually, it was the Cars who said it first. Yeah, that's right. Tom Brady's infringing on the Cars copyright. But so I just want people to like be empowered to stick up for themselves. So I actually messaged my fleet manager when I hauled that heavy ass intermodal trailer that already was deprimed. I think I mentioned that when I talked about it earlier. It was already deprimed, right? Like, to me, that's another company's trailer. And I told him, I said, you tell Pedigree I want like $1,000 for moving that trailer from Columbus to Atlanta. And I'm only a little bit joking. So I haven't seen any money, and I'm gonna raise hell on Monday. Why? Because even though I did fine last week, every penny counts. And and just getting back to the every penny counts and sticking up for yourself. I had somebody reach out to me because I've kind of talked about professional services and stuff in the past, and I've opined on a certain professional services company, and I use air quotes if I didn't have the soda in my hand, that has that's in the Millennium Building in Springfield. And I said to them, so I don't even know how we got on the subject. We were talking about taxes or whatever. Well, it just so happened that they had gone through, they had trained, I guess last year they trained or something, and like they were on a truck. They were in TNT. They trained, and then they got their own truck, and so then, and they were leasing, so then they would be 1099, right? So Prime sent them both a W-2, because they were a W-2 employee, and then sent them a 1099. And they sent the 1099 to this professional services accounting company, but they just independently, they thought, okay, well, I should just file a tax return with the W-2, right? Because that's easy peasy, right? Like, it says what I got taken out, it says what I earned. I'll send that in to the IRS. And so then it turned out that doing that with the W-2 was the wrong thing to do. But this person that was talking to me was like, I really wish Prime would have said something like to give that to the professional services provider. And, or they should have just sent it there or whatever. And I said, you know what? You cannot blame Prime on this. And here's why. Prime is just doing what they're obligated by law to do, and they don't want to give you any accounting advice, right? They don't want to give you any tax advice or tax compliance advice, right? But your professional services provider should have understood your situation and known that you were going to get a W-2 and a 1099 from Prime, and already said to you in advance, hey, you're going to get two things from Prime, W-2 and a 1099, right? Send them both to us. Don't do anything with either of them. Send them both to us. So now, because he really didn't get good advice, they're charging him more to fix the mistake. But let me say this about the mistake. You could say, oh yeah, well, he should have asked. Well, you know, a lot of times it's hard to get a hold of people, right? I talked to one person and they said they were in Springfield, and this is a while back, and I said, oh, what are you doing there? Oh, I'm waiting to see these guys. And then they were there for like several days, and I'm just like, what? I don't get it. Like, what is there, just a sign-in sheet like there is at Tyson when you get there with your empty? I mean, this is professional services. You're paying good ass money for these people to give you advice and give you time. You shouldn't have to wait around for, you know, like, you shouldn't have to wait around for them, right? And, you know, I told the guy that had the W-2 problem, I said, man, I strongly advise you to just go get somebody in your hometown who's a CPA. And that's the other thing. If you don't know this, and maybe you don't, you can have an accounting degree and be an accountant, right? Like you have a bachelor's in accounting, right? But that doesn't mean that you're that you're a certified public accountant, right? A CPA, okay? And CPAs are, you know, they have been through a vetting process and a testing process, and they have, you know, it's like being a licensed attorney. You can graduate from law school and be called a lawyer, but there's a difference between a lawyer and an attorney. They're really not synonymous. A lawyer means somebody that has a legal education, right? An attorney is somebody who's licensed to practice law. Now, and don't confuse that with like barristers and solicitors in England. That's just two different categories of people that are both licensed to practice law. But in the United States, you know, would you go to an attorney that's not licensed? You probably wouldn't want to, right? You'd be like, well, you know, and I'm not saying somebody that's unlicensed couldn't give you good advice, but they certainly couldn't represent you in court. And that's true with CPAs, right? I can't imagine because CPAs, they walk the walk, talk the talk. They're professional advisors. Those are the guys, if you need to get a hold of the CPAs have like this backdoor number for the IRS and stuff, right? That's what you want to pay for, professional services and advice. And what I told this person was, I said, you know, when I practiced law, I never wanted a client to come back to me and say, hey, you know, I wish you would have told me that. And neither should you. If you're using a professional services provider, right, or agency or firm or whatever you want to call it, company, they should anticipate problems that you might have. They should think of questions to answer that you don't even ask, right? Because that's their job, is to figure things and look down the road farther than you can see, using their experience, their professional acumen, right? And, you know, they should anticipate and figure out solutions to problems you don't even know you have yet, okay? I can't tell you how many times somebody was like, hey, I need you to do this for me. And I would be like, okay, but what about this? And they'd be like, oh, do I need to do something about that? I'm like, yeah, you know? That's their job. That's what you're paying them for. Because otherwise, all you got is somebody that can prepare taxes. You go to frickin' H&R Block for that, right? Those tax preparers, they go through a training course, but they're not CPAs. They don't advise businesses. You have a business, you need good advice. And like, I think the firm that we use, when I say we, I mean me and my wife, they like make sure that payments are made, and I think we're paying them a retainer of like $150 a month. But I don't worry about anything right? I don't worry about anything. My wife gives them stuff. She meets with them once in a while, and that, you know, you need good professional services. And, you know, I don't see a huge difference, at least what I anecdotally know. I've never done business with them, but what I anecdotally know about the people in the Millennium Building, it looks to me like it's not much different than the Jackson Hewitt people sitting behind some fake walls at the Walmart. And the reason I say that is because I was in that little library room. I call it the library because there's a couple books on the shelf. It's the Prime Library. Library of Prime. I was in that room one day. Nobody said anything to me. I was in there eating, watching TV or something. Or I don't know what I was doing. But there was one of those advisory people, accountants, I don't know what this person was. And he's in there discussing with a couple, a man and a woman, their tax issues. Like, I could hear the whole conversation. Now, I will say that in most states there's not accountant-client privilege like there is attorney-client privilege. But if there were accountant-client privilege, like there could be in Missouri. But if there is, they were waiving the privilege unknowingly, because they wouldn't know about the privilege rules, because that's not what they do for a living. They drive a truck. They would be waiving privilege because they had a conversation within earshot of somebody who was not part of that privilege, me, and actually there were a couple other people in there, and that's unprofessional. But it's not on them to know that; it's on that professional services provider to know that. And those are just little things, and and there's probably a lot of people who think they get a great value from these folks, but you know, and here's the other thing. If you get audited, I don't know what their obligation is to represent you. I know this, though. I got a CPA. If the IRS said they were going to audit me, I'd forward the letter to my CPA, and that would be the first line of defense. That would be who would respond to the IRS, you know, and say, okay, well, we'll set up a meeting, and the CPA comes with you and represents you at the audit, because they're the ones that prepared your taxes and stuff. They have all this knowledge. They know all the rules. So, you know, again, I'm not trying to break anybody's back here. I'm not trying to rob anybody of business. But I do have, I think you can tell, I have some strong opinions about how professional services are supposed to be rendered. And I really feel like there are some shortcomings with the folks in the Millennium Building, and that's my opinion, and it's only based on stuff that I've gotten from their clients. Okay, do I think they're doing anything, you know, like wrong in terms of, you know, like they're just totally misguided? No, but I think the level of professionalism is not what I would expect from a professional services firm. Now, and maybe that's because I've just dealt with, you know, CPA firms that have, you know, clients of all sorts, you know, and you go to their office building and you go in their waiting room and you go in a private, you know what I'm saying? It's a different feel. I feel like what's going on at the Millennium Building is kind of just this assembly line. And again, that just confirms my thinking that it's not a lot different than H&R Block, or, you know, in the strip mall, or, you know, where all your neighbors walking by to go to the liquor store or the grocery store is like, Jim's in there getting his taxes done, you know, because they could see you through the glass. Or the person sitting in the chair behind the fake walls at Walmart. Oh, I see Bill and Karen were in there getting their taxes done at Walmart. So, just my opinion. But, and if you got questions about, not about specific providers, but just what you should expect, you know, let me know. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you later. Bye.